the president shall receive just compensation. He gets paid for what he does. He tells the Congress, he gives them a State of the Union address to tell them how things are going in our country. He's supposed to be aware of all that, and every single bill crosses his desk. He doesn't propose them. He doesn't. He can't vote on them. He can't bring them to the. He can present them just like individuals can present new bills, but he can't make the House bring it to committee. He can't take it out of committee. He can't do any of those things. He can only sign it after they've approved it. But
does he have input?
He does have input. He's totally allowed to have input. But I would argue that there is, even though the president has no power to legislate, he only has the power to confirm the legislation afterwards. He has no power to regulate. He has no power to tax. He has no power to do all of these things. The sole greatest power that the president has, does anybody have any idea?
Oh, the army.
It's the military.
Wrong. I'll give you that the military is very important. But there was very little military action from 1791 to
Veto.
Precisely. He says, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So any government intrusiveness can be stopped by one man alone. At the same time, with that great power to stop, he also has a great power to give it freely. But if you ever had a president that was strong enough to resist the power, the temptation to take more power of the federal government, you would have the strongest president. And we had that after the signing of this document. George Washington had the opportunity to be king of the United States. They wanted to vote him as king, as long as he would live. And he said, no, I want to serve my country. I'm giving the military back as general to the United States Congress. They're responsible for them during times of peace. And I am going home until I'm to be president. And after I'm president, he went back home, lived for 2 years, and died because he said, my role is to be, as a powerful man, I need to resist all of the power that could be given to me. And that is the most powerful opportunity that a president could ever have. He has civilian power over the military, as you guys all know. And again, in Section 3, he gives a State of the Union address. Just follow up the question at the end.
Executive orders.
Well, let's follow up at the end. At the end, we'll get that. Again, the State of the Union is Section 3, and then what disqualifies a president? They have things such as treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Those are not well defined, but I think that treason is well defined according to our founders. Now we have the judicial branch, the system of justice, the courts. That is Article 1, Section, that's Article 3 of our Constitution. So you have Article 1 is the Congress. You have two houses. You have Article 2, that's the President. Now you have Article 3, so we have this balance of power. Let me actually go back to our roadmap. So our roadmap shows us that Article 1 focuses all the power. This is the central, piece of the document. You have the President. He gets a small little piece over here, and even the judiciary gets a smaller piece. And that's our roadmap right there of where the Constitution takes us as far as what the federal government is allowed to do. So we're at the system of justice. You have the Supreme Court. It has very specific jurisdictions. I'm sorry, where are we? It has power to institute smaller courts to deal with more day-to-day issues. The Supreme Court will hear only, this is very interesting, it only hears those cases that the Congress allows them to hear. Now, no one would ever think that. The Congress had the power over the courts, but interestingly enough, the only people that have the power over the President and the justice system is the Congress, because it represents the people. The judges, you'll see in there, are appointed by the President, and they're confirmed by the Congress. If they're not confirmed by the Congress, then they don't represent the people. The Congress can limit, and I'll tell you exactly where. In all cases of ambassadors, The trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be a trial by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the crimes have been committed. But when not committed in any state, the trial shall be in such places as the Congress may by law have directed. I'm sorry, here we are. Just above that, you see section 3, you see the paragraph above that. It says, in all cases of ambassadors, ministers, the Supreme Court shall have jurisdiction, original jurisdiction. In all cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both in law and fact, with exception, and under such regulation as the Congress shall make. So you have congressional power. All the power is held by the houses that are representative of the people. And that is an important point that is often missing. We hear about Supreme Court justices or Supreme Court courts that are legislating from the bench, and they can be limited by the Congress on what they're allowed to legislate and how it affects our everyday lives. Something to think about. Article 4 is the states. What can the states do? Well, there's a lot more that the states can do, but just in case there was any question, the states are doing these things uniformly throughout the United States. They will give full faith and credit shall be given to each state, the public acts, the records, the proceedings of every state, and the Congress by general law prescribes a manner that these acts and records are given to the public. Now, the citizens of each state, let's say you move from Florida to Alabama to Georgia to South Carolina, all of the laws in the state of Florida are respected in the laws of Alabama. Now, they have additional laws, and there's no limitation on state taxes in the Constitution because states can tax differently than the government can. But you have all the privileges and immunities in all of the states to do as you would do in your original state, which is a very important thing. You look at the European Union or you look at some of these other communities that they're trying to do free trade agreements with, and there is not that seamless movement of commerce, of communication, of just relationships between the government and its people. And I think that that's a very important thing. We are one nation, as we all say, and that's one of the ways that we show we're one. We don't have divided laws that limit what each citizen can do in different states. Now, how does a new state come to the Union? Well, that's, of course, determined by Congress. And every state, in Section 4, is guaranteed to be a Republican form of government. Now, this isn't a class to talk about the different forms of government, but I'll just give you a brief synopsis. A democratic form of government means that everybody gets to vote on everything all the time, which means that the little kid in the schoolyard gets beat up by a bigger number of kids. So it's not representing individuals, it's representing the masses, the majority. And that's not always a good thing, because what if the masses want something bad for you? Then you have a socialist form of government, which means the government can plan and tell you what to do with your own life effectively, better than you can. And I think we would all question that. And then you have a representative republic. A representative republic means res publica, rule by law. And that means that they have to be bound to laws, and they're representing us. We don't have to decide on every law. We don't have to know how much money is, or we don't have to vote on how much money is spent on our military, but we get to know about it. We're represented. And I think that is an important distinction from democracy, which some people say is being spread around the world, because that's not a valuable thing. Article 5 is an interesting amendment, or an interesting article. It's the idea that this is a living document. Typically, when you hear somebody say that our Constitution is a living document, you all would disagree with it. I would agree with them, but they're always talking about Article 1, Section 8, where you have the Commerce Clause, where you can do anything you want, or you have the Necessary and Proper Clause, where you can do anything you want, or you have the Welfare Clause, where you can do anything you want. However, the founders knew they weren't perfect, and the amendment process is the only way